can watch the recording and get all the information and so on and so forth. Fabulous. All right. So we do a town hall every season just to share updates of what was changed for the year. At the end of every year, we look at our survey that was submitted by all of our coaches. And as an advisory committee, along with Playfly and AIA, we go through every single question, suggestion, concern, and we try to address them as best as we can. There are some things that, we can't because of restrictions from wherever the situation's coming from. Some of them are things that we know we've tried in the past and they just don't necessarily work for our state. And other things we're able to implement for the upcoming season. So kind of our agenda, we're going to go through some quick introductions, meeting norms, go over our coaches' expectations, reschedules, Discord, team names, substitution forfeits, date, and then general reminders and updates. For our new coaches, we are also going to walk you through how to register for the spring season. Veteran coaches, if you don't want to stick around for that part, it's short, but you will be free to go at that point, and then we'll have a section for Q&A. Feel free to put in questions in the chat. I'll try to catch them as much as I can. If not, our other members of our advisory committee will also jump on there, and a lot of our veteran teachers, coaches are also really good about offering their advice and their answers as we go through. So like I said, I'm at Gilbert High School. Also members in our advisory committee, we have Robbie from Desert Ridge, John from Valley Christian, Marcus from Benjamin Franklin, and Aaron from Liberty. We also have an administrator from Tolleson who is part of our team. We are all on Discord, so a lot of times we're on there. Would one of you guys be able to share the link? John, are they looking the link on Discord or looking to get in the meeting? Because I believe I have admitted everyone. Yeah, so if we could share. Are we all good? Okay, I'm going to continue. If somebody could share the link to this on Discord and maybe in the chat here as well, that would be awesome. Okay, perfect. All right, and then as far as Fly team, Joe Navarro is a godsend. He helps us with everything when it comes to logistics and challenges. He is one of our operation managers, and you'll get to hear from him shortly. Awesome. All right, so then our meeting norms. I guess we didn't update that one. I apologize. Our expectations. Meeting norms, again, we kind of went over. Use the chat. If you want to, it's easier for you to verbally say them, just do the little raise hand feature on there, and we'll call on you for sure. All right, so our expectations, kind of the usual. We require all coaches to be present at all games and practices. We know that things come up, and sometimes you get pulled into IEP meetings, or you're a filter for something else, or whatever's going on. Just make sure you have a representative from your campus that is there to supervise your kids. Remember that it is a rule in our bylaws for AIA, so this is not even a Playfly rule. It's an AIA bylaw that the team must be playing in the same location. So your team needs to be all together in the same room, and you as a coach or a representative from your campus needs to be there. Make sure that all your team members are playing on their main accounts. This is specific for Rocket League and League of Legends. That is kind of one of those things that's an honor system because there's no real way to verify that. So we ask for all coaches to be having those conversations with your students to make sure that they avoid using Smurf accounts. We'll go into some other rules that were implemented this year about League of Legends and those accounts that is going to be crucial for you as the coach to be aware of and for you as the coach to enforce. Because if a student does it even if it's, well, I didn't know, that could cause your team some forfeits in regards to their account names and which account that they are using. So be very mindful of that. Monitor all games, chats, streams to avoid. Yes, we are going to talk about those ranks shortly as well. This year, groups are not created based off those ranks, so it's more about information that's being provided on those ranks than group creation. So as far as monitoring it, one thing that is important for everyone to realize, a lot of us stream our games. So when students are chatting in game, it shows up on the corner of your screen when you're streaming. So if your student says anything that's considered toxic or inappropriate, it could potentially be shown to a large group of our communities. They're representing your school, they're representing your team. I know for some of us, kind of a rule of thumb is don't discourage your kids from even chatting against their opponent. Aside from the GG, good luck, have fun. I have my kids completely avoid chat whatsoever. If something needs to be said, I will communicate it with the coach. Or if something happens as far as we have to pause or we had a disconnect, then maybe those are things that are communicated. But getting that habit out of them is huge to avoid those toxic behaviors. All team members might be in the same location. And the next big thing, if you see something, say something. You are a first line of defense. We don't have referees. We don't have administrators in our games. Both of our coaches in there are kind of the refs and the administrators. So it is on us to make sure that we hold each other accountable and that we hold ourselves accountable, that all the rules are being followed, that all the processes are being followed correctly, to just make sure our kids are having a fair, fun experience. Discord. We have a Discord that is just for our coaches. It is technically not mandatory for you to join it, but we highly encourage it. That is the #1 place for Playfly, AIA, and for us to share updates and information. Yes, it will go out in emails. However, I don't know about you, but I get a gazillion emails a day. So sometimes having a quicker place that I can search it up is helpful. Also, it's a great way to connect with other coaches, especially if you are a new coach. There is a wealth of knowledge and experience in that Discord in every single title when it comes to technology, when it comes to running practices and events and fundraisers and what competitions can you do. If you ever have a question, honestly, that's the first place to go and ask, because there is somebody that's going to know the answer. And if we don't, we'll ask for you. So it's a great place. You can ping Playfly. You can ping our advisory committee. So that you can get more direct information. So anytime you have a game day issue, you definitely want to @Playfly. If you just type the message, they're not going to get a notification until you do that @Playfly. You can also contact other schools by doing and then the school name. Every coach is labeled and organized by their school, so they do have that label attached to their name. Not all schools are on there. So sometimes if you know you have an opponent and you're trying to find them on Discord, it might be a little hard if they're not there. If you notice that, please send them an invite, encourage them to join. It's a great way for us to build a community and continue to make esports better in our state. All right. Then as far as reschedules, the spring season's a little unique because we have a combination of a traditional season with what we had in the fall. JV will still operate in the queue system, while varsity will have a set schedule. Before the season starts, you will know who you're going to play week 1 through week 11. You can reschedule matches if you have a conflict. However, the deadline to get those reschedules approved is February 11th. You have to reschedule your own spring break, and we'll address that a little bit later on as well. So those reschedules have to be done prior to the week of February 11th. I believe it's the 11th for League of Legends, the 12th for Smash, and the 13th for Rocket League. All of that is done on the Playfly account. When you log into your account, there is a section. This YouTube video will show you how to do it, how to request a reschedule. However, both coaches have to approve and agree on that reschedule. You as the coach will get a notification if your opponent is requesting a reschedule. Please do not ignore those emails. Please communicate with your coaches and do not wait until the last minute. Last season, we had several of us like hunting coaches down trying to set a reschedule. I had several schools that I had to call administrators. I had to physically call the school to try to get a hold of the coach. Please handle those reschedules as early as you can, just to make it easier for both you and your opponent. Questions about Discord and reschedules? All right, we'll keep chugging along. Team names. So on Playfly, you have your overall school name. Then each of your teams gets to have a name. So if I have a League of Legends team, that's varsity, a varsity Smash team, and then a few JV teams. Every team needs their own unique name. However, all those names must include your school name without abbreviations. So I'm Gilbert High School. It will say Gilbert Smash Varsity, right? I can't just put GHS. And the reason for that, GHS can be a lot of things. It can be, I just drew a blank. It could be Globe. It could be Greenway. It could be Glendale. It could be lots of different schools, right? So we ask that you put your actual school name, the sport, and then the level. The level meaning varsity, JV, JV1, JVA, JVB, however you want to designate it, but that varsity JV distinction has to be there. So please make sure that as you go through that you make sure those names are done accordingly. Student accounts. The main ones to really worry about, again, are League of Legends and Rocket League. We want to make sure that all those names are school appropriate. Kind of the rule of thumb is if you have to ask, you probably shouldn't have it. So we ask that you double check all your kids. If anything seems just weird to you, to be honest, like on your phone or on a safe account, check it on Urban Dictionary. You'd be surprised how sneaky the kids try to be. Avoid references with 420, 69, any sort of body parts, any sort of recent world events or artist involved in world events. Just err on the side of caution. All right. Realize that we are all coming from a lot of different communities, and all of our kids' names their account names are being shown when we stream our games. If you compete in person, and again, that name ends up being a representation of your school, and that's the biggest thing. So we want to make sure that everything is above reproach. And report anything that you see as questionable. Please do not see it as tattling or trying to get a team in trouble. Not at all. If you run into a game that you're just like, ooh, I'm not sure if that's appropriate, please let somebody else know. And if as a coach, somebody approaches you and just say, hey, one of your kids' names, it's not quite that school appropriate. Try to see it through their point of view. Try to see it through a different community's point of view. I understand that some of these are hard to change. And with League of Legends, you can't change once the season starts. So just be proactive as the coach and double check those accounts before they even register it with Playfly. Any questions about account names, team names? All right. And if anything does come up, put it in the chat. All right. Subs, rosters, forfeits, nothing has changed much in this. Rosters will be locked 24 hours prior to your game. So if you play it in Smash and it's Wednesday at 4, you have until Tuesday, 4 o'clock to make any changes to your roster. You can have more than 3 people on your roster. So if you have your 3 set for varsity and you don't want to be stuck in a place where you might have to forfeit because you don't have enough players, add a 4th, add who your sub's going to be and have them sit there. Doesn't mean they have to play, but you can have them sit on your roster. All right. So I have varsity and I have 4 JV teams for Smash. All of my JV teams for Smash, I have 5 people on those rosters so that I know that people can move up and down. All right. And that way, no matter what, I know I have players to fill those teams if something happens and somebody's not available after those 24 hours. All right. If a JV player is subbing for your varsity, they can only sub up to 3 games. If they sub a 4th game, they are no longer allowed to play in JV. So as soon as they play 3 varsity games, then they are now officially varsity and cannot be leveled down. When you join lobbies, double check that the rosters match. That's again going back to the see something, say something, hold each other accountable. Double check that your roster's matching, but also double check your opponents. A lot of times we'll have coaches afterwards, after the game was played, and say, oh, I realized like this account isn't on there and they shouldn't have played. Well, you played the match, so we can't really do anything about it. You have to address those before the match is played. Varsity is allowed a maximum of 2 forfeits. If you exceed your 2 forfeits, you are no longer eligible for playoffs. You can still finish out your season. Just know that if you land in a place where you would normally make playoffs, then you get removed from that list because you exceeded your forfeits. Submit your forfeits as soon as possible. We have too many people that will wait until the timer runs out to submit that forfeit, which just makes it harder for your opponent team because they're sitting there in their lab waiting, kind of twiddling their thumbs, hoping that they're going to get to play that day. The sooner you can forfeit, the more time you're giving that coach to try to find a scrim and still find meaningful play time for their team. The one change that is happening to this is that our wait time has changed from 30 minutes to 15 minutes to help alleviate some of that waiting. Obviously, if it's something that you know, like, hey, we're just going to need a couple more minutes, communicate with your opponent. Ultimately, it's up to them whether or not they're willing to wait those extra couple minutes. Most of us are, especially if it's tech related, but just communication. Communication is key. We want to avoid those no-shows. Any questions about subs, rosters, forfeits? All right, here's our season in a snapshot, our dates to know. Preseason starts, for most of us, I believe it's the 2nd week of school back. It is only 2 weeks. There are no reschedules. It's a queue system. So if you're ready, you queue up to play. If you're not ready, you don't queue up. Regular season starts the week of January 28th. Again, depending, League of Legends, Smash, Rocket League, that changes flexible during that week. We have an 11-week season. We've had some questions asked, can the season be longer? Can it be shorter? No, we are under contract for 11 weeks, so it is 11 weeks. Reschedules, you have to reschedule your own spring break. So for those of us, I believe Gilbert, Chandler, Queen Creek, we have 2 weeks for spring break. You can choose to work it out with your admin and get access to your building and still have the kids play. If your kids are available, that is completely an option. But if you know your kids are not going to be available or you're not going to have access to your building or whatever the issue is, be proactive. As soon as that schedule is released, identify your spring break, start messaging those coaches. Most of us will have 1 week that overlaps for pretty much everyone. So just be mindful of that. You do have to play those matches before that April 10th week. So it just means that in 1 week, you're going to play twice. So if you compete in League of Legends, you might have a game on a Monday and then play again on Tuesday for that regular match. But it is your responsibility to get those taken care of. Every year we have coaches that get to spring break and they're like, wait, it's spring break. We have a game. What do we do? Can we reschedule? And the deadline has passed. And unfortunately, the answer is no. You can't reschedule. Once that deadline has passed, there are no reschedules approved. Unless it's like disaster level. Your building has lost power. Your school is shut down because of flooding. Like those are the kinds of things that would trigger a reschedule. Think about it like traditional sports. What would cause a soccer team to have to reschedule their match, right? Those are types of things that would cause us to allow to reschedule after that February 11th deadline. Playoffs are a 2-week set of games. The details of exactly when each round's going to play, that gets released later because that's fully dependent on how many teams are registered. And then that decides how many teams make it to playoffs. So, and as far as reschedules for playoffs, we ask that you will avoid them because they will release those schedules with enough time for your kids to plan around them. But again, if a sort of disaster happens, those reschedules can be handled on a case-by-case basis. Semifinals and state championship are in person. They are all done in one day. We have semifinals in the morning, and then championships are played on stage. The order of those will be coming out later, and the location will also be released later. Playfly is working through a couple different options. Once they have solidified a venue, they will let us know. Questions about our dates? Oh, Joe, I don't remember when that is.
So for varsity, it's going to close on January the 20th. For JV, we're going to have it open all season because of that queue format that we're using. So it's going to be open till Monday, April 7th for JV.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right, then some general reminders. Again, students play on their main accounts. Students have to play on the account that they register with Playfly. League of Legends and Rocket League is specifically the account that they register on Playfly is the account that they have to play every single week. I know that in League of Legends especially has become really popular to change your summoner name since Riot allowed that feature a couple years ago. However, this is the new rule that has been added. Week 1, those summoner names will be locked. You cannot change them. So even though it may be the same account, the kid just changed their summoner name, they will no longer be allowed to play. So you as the coach need to sit down with your league team and have that very serious conversation that as of that January 28th week, is it January 28th? Yeah, pretty sure it is. Make sure that your summoner name is what you're going to be happy with from now through May. And I don't know what it's going to take for you to convince them, because I know every single year I'll have a kid that like tries to change it. I'm like, what are you doing? Don't do that. So have those conversations with them. Absolutely no changes. That could cause your team to have some forfeits, or have your player have to pay to change it back to what it was. So please, please, please do not let your students change their summoner names. League of Legends, you have to load in the right order. Top, jungle, mid, ADC support. So once you join the lobby, you have to load in that correct order. Smash, we play best of 3. All 3 players must play. You have to be hardwired. So please, no hotspots. I know that makes it challenging for some schools. We are developing a tech team to help support everyone. Joe and Playfly is always available. John from Valley Christian is one of those leading our tech team. Discord's a great place to get that extra help. So we would rather help you through those tech issues. Just when Smash is not hardwired, it creates a lot more issues for everyone involved. So make sure you're hardwired. In Smash, the order you check in, you can move players around. I actually didn't realize we didn't have this. I believe you can move all 3 around because I did it during fall season. After you click your 3 players that are going to be playing, a white box is going to pop up, and it has like the little dots on the side where you can grab and drag them into the order that you want to play them. You as a coach and as a team, you can choose what order you're going to have your players compete in. Once you choose that and you check in, now that order is locked. Rocket League, the big thing is if you have any sort of disconnects, prior to the first goal, you can remake. If a goal has already been scored and somebody disconnects, try to connect as quickly as you can, but that game has to be finished out. All right, you can pause and figure out what's going on after that game is completed, but that game cannot be remade if a goal was scored prior to the disconnect. Any questions on those? And Joe and advisory committee, if I miss anything, please chime in. All right, League Unlocked. We've had some questions about this. This was a program that Riot used to have, I guess. We haven't really got information on a new link. The way that it worked is They gave us a link, you signed up, provided your IP addresses, and they would give you League Unlocked on those IP addresses. So it's not by account, it's by that IP. So when I log in my lab here on campus, I have all the champions unlocked. But when I log on at home, I only have the ones that I own on my account. It also comes with a few extra skins. However, we have not gotten a new link for this year. From what I can see on my side is if you had League Unlocked before, you still have it. Does everyone still have it on theirs? Just a quick check if anybody still does, or is it just me? Okay, so Willow Canyon does. Yep, Carl Hayden has it. So it looks like if for some, if you had it before, you might still have it. So we want to offer an alternative. In our rule book, we do have that you are allowed to use a third-party draft pick tool. This is an option. I've used it before. We used to compete as like a coach kind of a thing, and this is what we would use for the draft pick because you don't have to own all the champions. One of the coaches would just have to create this ahead of time. And you really want to do this before that 4 o'clock time so that you use your time wisely. But the pro draft, you type in your school names. It will give you links so I put on here, Gilbert and Desert Ridge. So I would send Robbie the Desert Ridge link. I would have my kids log in on the Gilbert link. Because I'm streaming, I would use the spectator link. And then the bottom picture kind of shows you what the layout looks like. Your team can ban in the right order, can pick the champions in the order they want to pick them. And then you go to Riot and you start up your match. And if your top laner picked Ornn, but it was their last pick, they still pick it first. Like they're still going to pick Ornn for their top. It's just the order of when you pick them will change. So you still have to ban the exact same champions, pick the exact same champions. Does require some honor system and some coach supervision to make sure our students aren't being cheeky and change their picks. But this is an alternative for those that don't have League Unlocked because regardless, you have to load in the right order. So top has to go first. And if everyone doesn't have League Unlocked, it makes it harder to choose your picks in different orders. So any questions about this draft pick tool? All right. There's lots of other tools out there. This is just the one that I know that I've used that works well and that I liked using and seem pretty user-friendly for the kids to use as well. All right. Would somebody like to take over the IT checklist?
Yeah, I can snag this one.
Cool.
John, you can come around and finish up. This is the easy ones. If there's anything not on the slide, I'll have you. You can chime in. But yeah, important tech actions. This is going to be all under the IT checklist of our resource center. But really read over that. That's going to have the domains and other things that you want to whitelist. The main points that we want to highlight here is you're going to want to have your school network ready for competition. That's whitelisting the games that make sure they're all downloaded on your PCs. Your consoles are whitelisted and connected and everything. For Smash in particular, you want to have open NAT types. So that's going to be the NAT types A or B, as well as an Ethernet connection. That is required for our competition matches simply because Nintendo Online is not the best sometimes, to speak plainly. So for any competitive match, that's the requirement. No hotspots. You can still technically play with C or D. It's just going to make it more likely that you won't be able to connect, and our admins will rule in favor of the type A or the type B opponent that you may be up against. So talk to your IT team early about that. And then for platform and support emails, like if you're trying to reach out to my admin team getting help on a match, make sure you whitelist our 3 email domains, playfi.com, leakspot.gg, and playfiesports.com. Otherwise, we might be trying to respond to you and you might not be seeing our emails because your network, your school has a filter of some sort against third parties that they don't recognize. So we need those explicitly whitelisted.
The only thing I want to add is specifically for Smash Bros. When it talks about the open NAT types, it is possible on the Nintendo Switch for your Switch to show that you are online and to show that you have access to things, and yet not be able to join a battle arena, or people can't join yours. So make sure that you test it beforehand. The great reason for the preseason to exist. Otherwise, hit up anybody in the Discord, and you can just do a quick test to see if you're able to join a battle arena online. That's the easiest way to know if you're good. Sometimes, like if you're, like I said, we're gonna have a team together that you can reach out to if your IT team is being difficult, because in general, us IT people are cranky. So if you have any questions or issues with them, just go ahead and reach out, and we're happy to help. We're happy to help them talk about settings. And one last important note is that it can still work with a C or a D NAT type, like Joe said. What you may experience, though, is that some people will either be unable to host an arena but can join, or some people will be unable to join but can host. And so make sure, if you're troubleshooting all those things, make sure that you have both of those functionalities before you attempt to join a game. The last thing we want is anybody to have a tech forfeit for something that is preventable if we could have tested it beforehand. So just keep those things in mind.
Joe, you want to take this one too?
Yes, I can. So whenever you need an admin for a match, it's going to happen inevitably. A rule's going to come up. You're not quite sure what to do, or maybe you haven't played a game since the Atari days and your students are saying words you don't recognize. There's 3 ways to call an admin. So you can request a moderator in the League Spot match chat. It's going to appear in the top right. You'll have to enter the chat, I believe, to see it. So make sure you've done that ahead of time. If you're in the Discord, you can ping at PlayFi. That will ping myself and the rest of the PlayFi team. Major important thing there. I know I'm great. I know I'm wonderful. Do not ping at Joe, because there are some nights that I'm out with my family or out with my friends, and that means you're not getting support quickly. Ping at PlayFi, and whoever's online will help you as quickly as they can. And lastly, you can email esports-aia@playfi.com. That's also where you can reach our admins. We'll have someone monitoring that. Generally, I don't recommend that for real-time match issues, just because Discord and match chat is going to be fast response time. All the niceties of writing an email and making it look nice. Discord and League Spot match chat are just going to be a lot snappier. And anytime you request help, please give us some details. Like, not everyone, but every year we have a couple people who will ask for help, and it's like, great, what are the details? And then we don't hear from them for 15 minutes. So match links, team names, schools, describe the issue, screenshots, anything that's relevant to the issue that's going on. That way we can help. And then, like I said, do not ping or email specific individuals. I have my own email. You are welcome to reach out to me, but if it's a real-time match issue, reach out to the broader span so you can reach the on-duty team and get that help in real time.
Awesome. And I believe the link to the Discord was shared earlier. We have a couple admins on here that will get you access right away. We just need to know what school you're from. We verify that just to make sure, just to attach you to a school name so that it's easier to ping people. So make sure that you join that Discord. It is the fastest way to get a hold of someone to get help, especially match day issues, especially if it's a time-sensitive issue. All right, general updates for the spring season. Teams can only scrimmage against other high school teams affiliated with their state athletic association, such as AIA. I know this has been a huge one, and we've been having so many questions. So we will, if you have specific questions to this, I do believe that Brian from AIA is here. So we can pause here if we have specific questions on this. Essentially, the bottom line in this is if you go to in the regular season, so January 28th to May 3rd, if you go to any tournament, any competition, if you set up any scrimmages, All of those sorts of competitions can only be played against teams that you know without a shadow of a doubt are high school teams that are involved in their state association. So just because it's a high school team in Arizona doesn't necessarily mean that they're eligible unless they're a member of AIA. You can also compete against teams in California, New Mexico, Texas, Florida, New York. It doesn't matter where in the country, as long as they are also affiliated with their version of AIA, their high school athletic association. We did just get clearance of the PVCC, what is it, Sundown tournament? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's Sundown, and there's a bunch of different ones, but it's the Sundown series.
PVCC will be sending their registration to the advisory committee, and we will verify that all of those schools are members of AIA. And as soon as the advisory committee gives that stamp of approval, that tournament is completely free to safe to be competed in. And that statement is on the AIA website. We've had some administrators that were concerned about whether or not those tournaments would be allowed. That statement is officially from AIA so that you can show that to your administrator if you choose to compete in those PVCC tournaments during the regular season. If it's in the fall, you can compete at scrimmage whomever you'd like. So be careful with sites like Gangster. That's one that I know I've used so much. Your official team cannot be competing in those spaces as your school team, if that makes sense. So if anybody has any specific questions to this that maybe Brian can speak to. I have a few meetings.
Rachel, if you want to, I'm going to drop my email in chat. If you want to shoot me an email and we can find time to have a one-on-one conversation, I'd be happy to get you sorted.
I had one question on that note. This was just from a different coach that I was having a side conversation with. The question was about an outside tournament that had other games that weren't AIA approved. Is there any restriction based on that, or is it only when it comes to games that are competed within the AIA?
Yeah, we're talking specifically games that are AIA League sanctioned games. So we're talking Rocket League, Super Smash, and League of Legends. So we're talking about not having organized team competition in those. So they can compete in individual tournaments. In fact, students can compete in individual tournaments in those games as well. It's just when you go as a team, that's a different concept.
So, and again, I'm just trying to be clear to communicate from other coaches that have reached out, because I don't have any club teams. But like, if there is a team, a school that has, let's say, a club Overwatch team, there's no restriction on that at all. Is that correct?
That has nothing to do with AIA. So yes, correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. And I think that is a huge distinction. If you have a single student on your Smash team that likes to go do solo tournaments, it's completely fine for them to continue to do those tournaments whenever they want. It's about the Gilbert High School varsity Smash team can't go compete in a competition where there might be potential college teams or non-high school teams. That's where we have those issues.
Yeah, and to answer your question, Kevin, yeah, if they're competing in other leagues, not play fly, but in AIA member school still, yes, you can scrimmage against them. And that goes for any state association that has a member school, a part of any league, whatever it is. You can participate against them as well, as long as they're part of their respective association.
And that's something that's easy for you to check. You can just Google whatever state, look up their athletic association. Most schools have a member list of what schools are members of their athletic association. So it's not a super huge process to try to identify if they are or they aren't. Awesome. Any other questions regarding scrimmages and competitions in season?
Yeah, I just want to add one thing, because I did have this question on an email as well. If you're obviously waiting in queue and your kids are scrimmaging against people online, you're not actively seeking out a college or anything like that. That is completely different. So if you're, just practicing general students doing that, getting ready for competition, that's not a big deal. We're just talking about you can't actively go out and say, hey, university, we want to scrimmage against your team. So that's all we're saying in that.
All right. Awesome. And again, if anything comes up, we can continue to address those. So again, must be sanctioned with AIA, and the PVCC Sundown tournaments have been approved. This was something that was added as well, or I guess more emphasized, bylaw changes with AIA. This is something that's applicable to all high school sports. So this is not just esports. It is for everyone that we are being made aware of this. NIL is the name, image, and likeness. And this just means that their name, image, likeness cannot be tied to the athletic performance, cannot involve the school, cannot include student, school, or district equipment, cannot endorse products or activities that would violate a school's district policy. Student parents must notify the school administrator, athletic director of any NIL contract or agreement. So this is like if a kid was going to be sponsored by Nike, or they are becoming an influencer on social media. Those are the types of things that it cannot be tied to their athletic performance. There's a video that is linked here that is from AIA, that is a training video. If you have not seen this, I strongly encourage you to watch this. It explains it way better than I could. But it's important information for you to be aware of, to communicate with your students as well.
Yeah, let me just add to that. One of the reasons why esports is sanctioned as an activity, and a lot of this applies, is because we know some of these students might compete in tournaments where there's cash prizes available. So obviously that's based on performance. Activity is different in that sense. Those students are still eligible to do that. They're still eligible to compete in AIA sanctioned events, even if they win prize money in competitions. Because if you know the different, say there's a football player that goes out and competes in an esports tournament and wins cash money, that's not based on athletic performance. That's based on, that game. So that's why we have it sanctioned as an activity instead of an athletic sport per se. So just to make you aware of that.
Yeah, that's a great point. That question always comes up of, why are we just an activity? Why can't we be a sport? It's possible for us to have those conversations, but as Brian says, like, it would come with significantly more restrictions that would make it hard for esports to flourish. Awesome. All right. Major updates for the game. Steve is allowed. So that ban has been removed. Students can play Steve now. League of Legends, again, summoners cannot be changed after the season has started. There was a question about third-party sites such as Professor, which just gives you in-game data about your opponent. Not anything that the committee felt like it doesn't give you anything that is an edge in the game. So we have decided that Professor is allowed. Just know that it may not be available at championships. So games in person, we will not be able to guarantee that those add-ons will be uploaded to those computers. Third-party sites are allowed for picks and bans. Again, coordinate with your opponent with enough time if you plan to use that third-party site for picks and bans. Some commonly asked questions we get all the time. We saw it all over our surveys. Why can't we play everyone in our group? The simple reason, you guys, is we can't have set group numbers because that depends on how many registrations we get. So we have an 11-week season, and if we only have 40 teams registered, there is no way to create teams that are 11 groups with 11 teams so that everyone can play everyone, right? I'm not even sure if that math would work out, but I hope you get what I'm saying. Because we don't know how many registrations we're going to have, it is nearly an impossible task. We would have to get super lucky with just the right amount of numbers that lands with equal size groups where everyone can end up playing with each other. So you more than likely will not play everyone in your group. How is that decided? Well, groups will be created based on your stats from the spring season last year, your final standings. That will help guide the way that groups are created. If you didn't play that season, you are getting plugged in randomly. I'm not sure it'll be alpha order or how that's going to look like, but there are no stats for us to use for you. So you'll just get plugged in into the different groups. Within that group, who plays against whom? Joe, I believe that's just going to be completely at random. Yeah. So some depending on the size of the groups, again, odd, even, some teams might get a bye week, some teams won't. Because we don't have the same number of registrations every single year, we can't ensure that everyone will play everyone. We've had the question asked, what about going to division, similar to traditional sports? The reality is that we just don't have everyone in their state participating that we do in traditional sports. We hope to get there someday. We're just not there yet. Any questions on that or clarifying points? All right, so registration. I took some screenshots of my account. Hopefully that this would help some people. Essentially, the very first thing, if you're a new coach, you need to add a team. You have to have an account with Playfly. I missed my bolded point. You can't create your own account. You have to reach out to Playfly and they have to create your school account. So that is, like we said earlier, emailing the Playfly email, emailing Joe, probably emailing the team's probably going to be easier rather than just Joe directly. But they will help you create your school account and connect you and give you the title of administrator coach for that account. Once you have your account, you can add teams, you will add players, you will have to send an invite link to the students that are going to be on your team. And then once you add them to a team, then you can join the season. So this is what it will look like. Once you have your account, you have a way for you to add your school name. You can add your mascot or logo if you would like. When you click on add team, you can type in the name. This is where we said it has to have your school name. It has to have the level, and you'll choose. Now, if you notice, that still says Valorant. We were hoping that it was going to get approved. It did not. So please don't think that Valorant is available. Unfortunately, it's not. And that's a conversation for later. So you will pick whatever title you are creating that team for, and you will have your team created. It will show there. It will show your players. I know. I'm sad too. So sad. Really wanted Valorant myself. But again, conversation for another day. Once you create teams, if you're playing all three titles or just one, they will still show up. All right. And as you can see here, these are all my Smash teams. I have the rosters for each one laid out. I can click on them and get a closer view of what my teams will all look like. Once you create your teams, you will go to the bottom of your school page where you can add students. So you will invite players. It gives you this box where you can copy the link and you can send the link to your students, or you can add your students' email addresses and they will get a link in their email. They will register their account, put in their name, their summoner name, all that stuff. The big thing you want them to do for League and Rocket League especially, they have to connect their game ID. So this is one of my League of Legends players. They have to connect their Riot ID. Yes.
Additionally, this is where I'm going to chime in and call back to the IT checklist. Whenever you invite players, you are more than welcome to invite them with their school emails, but that's where you want to have the network whitelisting those 3 domains, because if not, they're going to try to create their account. They're not going to get their confirmation email. They're not going to be able to reset their password, reset usernames. So talk with IT ahead of time. Otherwise, we got to deal with that later, and that's just a big hassle. So.
And the alternative to that is have them register with their private email address, because then more than likely it's not going to get bounced back. But yeah, if they're not getting a confirmation email, it's because your network is blocking those emails from Playfly, which creates some issues. League of Legends and Rocket League, it also gives students a chance to give their ranks. This is where it's important for your students to update their current ranking and to be honest about it. League of Legends and Rocket League, there are sites that you can go look at to see if it's accurate or not. And obviously from season to season, it's going to change. It's not quite as important because we're not using that to build teams this year. But that is a feature that's on there that can be useful for you and your opponents to be able to look at when you're competing. This is the summoner name that we are talking about. Once a student chooses their name and the season has started. So if your student has already connected their account, but they're going to change it, they can still change it. Until the season starts, they can change it. Once the season starts, no more changes. Once you have all your players under your team name, here's your team. There is a yellow box that says add user. There is where you'll get this box. You get to choose if you want to add a captain or a player. And then when you click on select user, it's going to give a list of every student on your team. You can choose to add them to the roster and you will have your team created. Once your roster is full, you need 5 for Rocket League, 5 for League of Legends, 3 for Smash. Once you have done that, you can join the season. Yes.
3 for Rocket League.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. Yes.
No worries.
Rocket League, 3 for Smash, 5 for League of Legends. You cannot register a team for the season if you only have 2 players. The system won't let you. You have to have a full team in order, like registered in Playfly. So you want to make sure your students are creating their accounts. Once your team is full, you can join season. And it will click on here. You'll choose whichever season you're choosing, whether it's a varsity team or a JV team, and you will join the season and you will be set. That is the conclusion of all this information. I know if you're new, sometimes it can feel a little overwhelming. Please know that you have a massive team behind you ready to help you that has been in your shoes, because every single one of us was there. A lot of us created the programs on our campuses from scratch. Most of the challenges you're going to face, there is someone in our Discord that has faced it and overcome it. So, overcame it. Anyways, make sure you reach out. If anyone has any questions, we'd be happy to answer those for you now. Joe just linked the league handbook that does give greater detail in all the rules, the dates, the processes, and also the rules for each game are available on there for you to peruse.
I think the biggest thing I'm going to call out real quick is last thing on the rosters is the 3-3-5 for each of the titles. That's the minimum. You can have double that to reach the maximum. So all you need is the minimum to register, double that as the maximum, and beyond that, organize your teams how you see fit. Have subs, have substitutes.
And that maximum is there so that you can add your subs to your roster. And you want more than one sub, because if something happens and you have a Rocket League team of 3 and 2 of those players are going to be gone, and you don't find out until 3 hours before the game, as annoying as it is, it happens. You have your subs sitting there in your roster already after rosters have been locked, so you don't have to forfeit your match, because that does not constitute a reason to reschedule. When creating a reschedule, is the coach required to send an email to the team using their Discord? So it's not required for you to send a message on Discord. You have to submit the request on Playfly, on LeagueSpot. Best practices, I would say go ahead and message them on Discord as well, or at least give them 24, 48 hours. If you haven't heard back from that coach, then yes, message them on Discord. You will have access to the coach's email address on LeagueSpot. Like, that is data for all of us that is available when you go to your schedule. So you'll be able to even just send a direct email to that coach as well.
So to answer on that. It's so you can just send a blind reschedule request. That does happen. This actually happened to me, and I felt super bad about it last year. But someone had just sent me an email, and I'm a district level IT guy, so I get hundreds of emails a day, and I just missed it. And so if you don't hear back within a day or so, I would start exhausting all of your avenues to get in contact with the other school, just to make sure that they got the request, because these reschedules, it is at the discretion of the other school on whether or not they will. But most people are reasonable and will work with you and try to get a match that works. But the last thing that you want is to just send the request and then not pay attention, and then someone didn't see it, and then the match just goes on as normal and you can't make it. And I'll just give this example. At Valley Christian, for our spring break, we have a missions trip program, and I'm leading a trip to the Dominican Republic I think it's the second week of March. So I'm going to need to reschedule or get coverage from one of my assistant coaches or my athletic director. So please be proactive, because all of these other schools are going to have stuff like that. If you don't hear back, I would even say within a day or two, maybe call the school's athletic secretary, maybe, find another email address, send another Discord message, figure out a way to get in contact, because to at least just get the answer of, will this happen or will it not happen? Because it's on you as the coach to do that.
And we are an AIA athletic activity. Most of us are under our athletic director. So if you are, have your athletic director help out. Just let him know, hey, I'm trying to get a hold of this coach. We need to reschedule because it's spring break. And this coach is not answering back. I know that happened to me. My athletic director reached out to that athletic director. One school, we were able to figure it out. Another school, we didn't. I went to the school's website and got the phone number for their front office, called the front office, asked to speak with the coach, had to leave a voicemail, did that a couple times. We all get busy. I get that. So you have to be proactive on your side if you're not hearing back. And those of us that are getting those messages, make sure that we're responding to them. And even if you're like, I can't do that week, that's okay. I know we had a couple questions come in. Does the handbook cover fees and how and when to pay? Joe, do you remember when invoices will normally go out?
I'm gonna throw that one to Brian, because he's the one who's been doing invoices. If he's still here.
Yeah, Brian bounced.
So normally your athletic department will handle that. So you'll go to your athletic secretary, you'll say, hey, I'm competing in the season, and then the AIA will send them the invoice when Joe or whoever says, yes, they are an actual blah, blah, blah. And then your athletic department creates the purchase order, and they send it off and do that. So yeah, if it's not yours, then so are you, I guess, Jackie, are you not under your athletic department then? Are you considered a club or organization? Because if that's the case, then Joe or Brian would then send it directly to you, and then you'd have to get the purchase order to pay it off, I guess.
So that's really on a case-by-case basis. It depends on how your school's handling it. Robbie and I are in the same district, and I almost had to pay for those fees out of my club account. Like, I was this close. I was told I was going to have to do that, and I had to have conversations to not have to do that. So it happens. Sometimes you have to have those conversations on how that it's $1,800 for as many games as you're going to play, covers the fall and the spring. I want to say those invoices went out sometime in around end of February, beginning of March. It's not at the beginning of the season. When you do join and register your team, it does have you agree to a statement that you are agreeing to sign in and that you will pay the fee. So I would definitely have that conversation with whoever is over you. Someone has to be over you, whether it's your athletic department or your activities department, whether you're seen as a sport or a club, there should be an administrator that's over you. So definitely have those conversations. There was another question.
Yeah, I think Joe took care of it. And then
Okay.
to go back to the reschedules, one of the things that I've noticed, and I don't know, it's kind of just a best practice, is if you guys is if like we try to have a second date during the week that we practice. So like for instance, for Smash, I try to have a practice on like a Tuesday or a Monday. So that way when we do come into the spring, the kids are already used to coming into school for 2 days. So for Wednesday for the matches, but for the second day for practice. And that'll help with your reschedule process as well now. Because like for us, like for instance, we're going to reschedule 2 varsity smash games, 2 varsity and then or a varsity smash, a varsity Rocket League, and then do it for 2 weeks. So now we're going to add 4 additional games in 2 different weeks that we're not playing. And so most teams, they're already going to be playing on Wednesdays at 4 and Thursdays at 4. So when are you going to play that reschedule? So most of the time, if you can do it, at 3 o'clock before the game, or if you practice, like our Rocket League team will practice on Wednesday, and then so we could possibly do a reschedule game on the Wednesday when they're already in practice time. So as you're getting your programs going, if you can do at least a second day of practice, then you can also utilize that second day for these reschedules for spring break, for those types of things.
A clarifying thing about League of Legends as well, well, that's in the chat. You can also just pause the game to get kids reconnected, right? Because that's usually what we do when we have a disconnect in League. You just pause.
I mean, I guess technically he's not wrong, but in the spirit of the game, why wouldn't you? Unless you're looking for that, unless you're willing to take that advantage, that kind of win. But I mean, I guess it'd be a case-by-case basis where you'd want to work with someone.
Yeah, we would encourage you that as long as it's like, that's why the no meaningful engagement part of that is there. Because if there is something meaningful that happened and then they disconnect, we completely understand. Like, the game started, kind of like the first goal already in Rocket League. But if it's just they disconnected, nothing's gone on, really, we would want the match to be played in full with all the players. So pause it or rehost it, whatever's needed. Work with the other teams, because at the end of the day, both schools want to play the match.
And I can appreciate that. I'm just looking for the dividing line here, because I've had matches where, we're halfway through the game and then 2 players drop out and claim that they have network issues and they want to restart the match. So I'm just looking for that dividing line where, so meaningful progress is the guiding principle here.
That would be
if
continue and maybe pause.
If there's a couple of kills on the board and like there's already a dragon taking place,
Yeah, that's why I want to clarify. I just don't want to be the bad guy here saying, "Oh well, all right, you had network issues. That's cool. Let's."
And I would almost add that in League of Legends, I don't see ever a situation where a restart would be needed, because League has the ability to pause. So you can pause the game. Like I've done it multiple times where, my team or the opponent team had disconnects. You pause and you let them connect. The pause allows you to pause, I think they were like 30, 35 minutes max. So because of that feature, I honestly don't ever see a need to completely restart the match.
Okay, I think I was trying to be overly fair in one situation, and my team called me out on it. So that's why I want to kind of get that clarification. So I appreciate the backup here.
Yeah, no problem.
I mean, I would even say once you get past 2 or 3 waves, like at that point, if you've got a lane advantage, it wouldn't be fair to restart the game at that point. So anyway, that's wild.
Okay, cool. We're all of a mind. I just think I just wanted to, getting an AITA kind of question here,
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Any other questions?
I think Robbie and I shop at the same tree shop.
Yeah, it looks like you do. Any questions about anything that we have addressed, didn't address? Alrighty. So it'll take a couple hours for the recording to populate, but we will share this. We'll share the presentation. And again, please feel free to reach out, Discord, email. We're here to support in any way that we can. And registration is open now, so start registering your teams. Because of the early preseason, we strongly encourage that you start having some of those practices. Like I know I had tryouts this week, so that we're ready to go as soon as we get back from break. And everyone have a great holiday season. Get some very much needed and deserved rest. And we'll see you all in the spring.
All right. Thank you.
Woohoo!